Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Diminishing Returns, where we will be looking at the Maze Runner films. What's the Maze Runner, I hear you ask? Well, congratulations, you are not a young adult. The Maze Runner is a 2014 film adaptation of a novel of the same name that was written for the surprisingly large adolescent market. Its sequel, The Scorch Trials, came out the following year, and the concluding part of the trilogy is out very soon. If you're not familiar with it, then don't worry, because neither were we. And spending an hour and 12 minutes listening to us will be a lot better use of your time than watching these two films. This episode contains spoilers for Cube, Lord of the Flies, The Village, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, The Last of Us, that's a video game apparently, Children of the Corn, The Matrix, Resident Evil Afterlife, and of course, The Maze Runner and The Scorch Trials. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Calvin, and with me today are Alan.
Hello.
And Sol.
Hello everyone, it's me.
And today we're going to be talking about The Maze Runner and its sequel, Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials. Now this is a genre film that I don't feel we look into an awful lot on this podcast, which is young adult teen fiction adaptations, which is quite popular. Hunger Games,
Harry
Divergent,
50 Shades of Grey, sort of.
That's not for the young adults, that's for adults.
No, but it's a fan fiction from Twilight, so it's from that same day.
It doesn't count.
I don't think it is. I think it's like a spin-off. It's for the young adults when they've grown up.
Anyway, I didn't think that we looked at this kind of film all that much, and I think Harry Potter's an exception. I think that's a slightly different thing. They often star sort of like unknown young people who've done a bit of TV work, and this is like their first break, and usually have some middle-aged proper actor in a small role, usually as a villain, like Kate Winslet in Divergent or Patricia Clarkson here. But there's also, I like looking, I hadn't seen the Hunger Games, Maze Runner before. To be honest, I didn't really know anything about it. I knew the title and therefore assumed that there was a maze and young people were going through a maze, but I really didn't know anything else about it. Did either of you two?
I've been wanting to watch this for quite a while, actually, but yeah, all I knew about it was someone, like, wakes up in a maze or something and doesn't really, like, basically, like, it's Cube, but in a maze. And I thought, oh, interesting, that could be good.
Well, I had literally never even heard of it until you suggested that we should do it. And I didn't read anything about it, I didn't know anything about it. I went into the film totally blind, so I figured that was the best way to approach it.
I mean, we're going to get into the films in more detail, I'm sure.
Can I start the discussion with this then?
Yes.
That when I watched, I went into the first film completely blind. And I was actually really quite impressed by it. I enjoyed it. And we've don't sigh. And we've talked about we have our own sort of buttons that when they get pressed, it's sort of like it makes up for all the flaws. This does a lot of mine, like a sort of a small group of people trapped together. I like that, and sort of the psychological problems that come with that, rather than just the external issues that they deal with. I found it very engaging. I was engrossed in it right the way through. It didn't feel too long. I was pretty pleased with the first one.
I mean, it is a very sleek. I think it's only like 110 minutes, something like that. It's under 2 hours, and it has a really nice, simple premise. The star of the film, a boy named Thomas. I think they're all about like 16, 17, 18, something like that. He is launched up an elevator into this sort of meadow in the middle of a giant maze with these huge walls all around him, and a group of boys have started a sort of Lord of the Flies-esque society within that wall. And there are people within that society known as runners who run through the maze because they're all trying to figure out how they get out, but the maze can close doors and change layout and stuff, so these people need a specialist knowledge, and the main character obviously gains that knowledge and becomes a runner himself. And there's also crazy monsters in the maze that run after the kids if they get trapped in there. I didn't think they were, but okay.
Do you not think?
Are you talking about the xenomorph from Alien?
Yeah.
Oh, no, these are like robot things.
They look like xenomorphs chasing them in the maze.
No, they don't. Like giant robot spiders.
Yeah,
they look like
with like a weird like
xenomorphs.
bug face
What are you
thing.
talking about? Did you watch the right film? Didn't look at anything like xenomorphs whatsoever.
And yeah, I think to summarize perhaps my thoughts as you did, Alan. I really enjoyed this first one as well. I thought it was a very nice, lean, young adult, middle budget action film. I kind of wish that there'd been a bit more to do with the boys' society. I wanted a bit more of the Lord of the Flies-esque stuff.
Do you remember how Alan felt about Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Kids?
Yeah.
And a completely unwarranted hatred of it, I believe.
Well, I mean, it was pretty gash, to be fair to him. But it wasn't quite as bad as he made it out to be. I feel like this is my Miss Peregrine. This film made me angry. It was so.
Oh wow!
Yes,
I was. Oh god! I couldn't believe it.
Oh wow!
It wound me up. All I knew going in was this premise, but I thought it was a really cool premise, and I knew it was meant to be half decent, the first one. I thought it'd be quite an enjoyable little, just bit of fun to get through. Yeah, I thought this film was absolutely awful on pretty much every level imaginable. I thought it was badly made. I thought it was really... on a technical level, I thought it was really poorly constructed. Like, throughout the film... I never had a sense of the surroundings or like a coherent sense of where people were meant to be or what was going on. I was struggling to follow the plot constantly, and I think that's partly because I was just finding it so difficult to stay engaged with the story. But like at the start, there was a huge exposition dump, and that's my sort of thing. I love exposition in this kind of film, world building. And I just couldn't keep up with it because it was so boring. And
there was a line in that exposition that did make me think, "Oh God, that's for Saul." It's when one of the new boy is sort of asking the others, like, "Oh, have you tried this to try and get out of it?
I love that.
What about this and that kind of thing?" And then one of them says, "Whatever you can think of, we've tried it." And he says it in a really annoyed.
That.
It's like, that's for the audience.
Yeah.
That's for Saul.
That was the one bit of the film I enjoyed, actually. I just thought it was really badly made. I hated all the characters. I couldn't tell you a single one of the names other than Thomas, because you just reminded me. I couldn't tell you even who was in it. There were two British kids, because one of them was son of Rambo and one of them was that Love Actually twat. Was it him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thomas Brodie Sangster.
I recognised them, but I didn't. For the longest time, I just thought they were the same person. I hadn't like realised they were two separate kids.
That's racist.
What, you thought they were the same?
No, I mean before this film, I just always in my memory the kid in Son of Rambo was the kid who did Love Actually and stuff. I'd like confused them in my memory. I know they don't look anything like each other. It's just they're sort of up for similar roles, but one of them's a lot uglier than the other one.
I'm curious to know which one.
Yeah, which one
do
you
think that
is ugly? Yeah.
Well, I've made a note that I found. I mean, I know it's not his fault, and I know it shouldn't affect your enjoyment of the film. But I found him distractingly ugly throughout this film, and it really took me out of the film.
Yeah, which one?
Will Poulter, is that his name?
Oh, Matt Damon, angry eyebrows. That's what I call him.
Like Calvin, you're someone I often go to see if someone's attractive or not.
Don't do this.
Is he an ugly
I'm
man?
so straight that I can't tell if a man's good looking or not.
Well, no, I'm looking for like validation of whether or not my sense of what is and isn't attractive in a man is accurate. Is he an ugly man?
If you're asking me who I'd rather have sex with, then it would be Will Poulter over Thomas Brodie Sangster.
But his actually looks quite tough, like he'd like really give it to you, and the other one looks like you might snap him in half by mistake.
Yeah, actually, yeah. No, I think Will Poulter has a bit more of a... Yeah, he's got unusual features, but I think in a sort of Daniel Craig-esque sort of way where you can light him one way and he looks like the most hideous, like, dragged himself out of a sewer, but then You like him another way, and he looks actually pretty good.
Well, I've watched him in other films, and I've never thought it. I think maybe it was just this film, but it was every time he came on screen, I was like, "Oh my god, what is up with this guy?" I just thought
I've seen him in real life, and he's quite all right. Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen him this old before, so I was just thinking like, "Oh, he's just grown into, you know." Anyway, like I say, more than anything, I just struggled to engage with it. I just thought the whole film was shot and edited and put together so badly.
No, well, I agree with you to an extent. I thought I had a good grasp of like how big that sort of meadow that they live in is, which is in the center of this maze. And then the main character goes off into this like forest.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought.
It looks like quite a big forest. It's like you can't see, you know, the meadow on the one side or the wall on the other for the trees. So I'm like, oh, well, okay, it's pretty big then, I guess. But it didn't look that big when they do their big 360 degrees shot at the very start where it swirls around the hero to sort of give an idea of the scale of the wall. But yeah, it didn't bother me all that much.
And the plot, like the premise is, you know, it's very intriguing. I wanted to know what was going to, you know, what the deal was, but it doesn't... Not to get ahead of us, but it doesn't pay off in a satisfying way whatsoever. And I've seen 100 other films do the exact same setup. Cube, as I mentioned before, is the most obvious one, but there's a million.
That's it. And I definitely felt like what I liked about the film was the Lord of the Flies bit, and the rest of it didn't make sense. It didn't really work. The ending kind of doesn't. And it is difficult to finish like that. Cube has no ending. Lord of the Flies has no real end. It's just Deus Ex Machina ending.
Well, it does have an ending. It's just a Deus Ex Machina. Lord of the Flies, at least, there's a point to the ending being what it is. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a good ending, but you can see why they went with it. But yeah, I've heard this film compared to Lord of the Flies a lot, and I don't really think that's a fair comparison, because yeah, it's a load of young men thrown together into a situation where, you know, there's no society, but it doesn't even try to explore the themes and ideas of Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies is about how we respond to the breakdown of society, and this is more concerned with whether or not, you know, people can go out and collect shit with giant ants running around after them, and I just don't think it really ever touched on any of that Lord of the Flies stuff. I'm certainly not, you know, implying that it did touch on any of those themes. It is just in the basic setup that it is all these boys living together in this place. Yeah.
I did find some meaning in all this, a metaphor, if you will. That I'd like to propose to you.
Oh, okay.
And this film is about science versus religion, because Thomas and his sort of like the people who are with him, they represent sort of logical reasoning, sensible thought, investigating and exploration. They don't have all the answers, but they keep searching for them. Albie, who is the original kind of leader guy, he is like the guy who creates a religion. You know, he finds order in chaos in order to create some sort of society, and creates these rules that help piece together a confusing situation in the best way they can. And then the ugly one you don't like, Saul, who's called Gally, by the way. Gally is the like inevitable next step of religion, which is we have to stick to these rules no matter what. Stop questioning things or I'll kill you. Blind faith because of fear, basically. So that's what I tried to find a good bit of deeper meaning in this whole thing. And the fact that religion is, you know, sort of brutally slaughtered at the end is just neither here nor there.
Yeah, I guess. But it's not as if science... Well, anyway, no, that's for the sequel to...
But in terms of the conflict in the society, like ignoring the sort of extraneous plot that goes around it, that's what I took from it. That's what I was enjoying. That was the sort of psychological battle between them all that I was into. That's the bit I liked about the film.
Yeah, I agree. Because when they actually do end up getting into the maze and running around and all that kind of stuff, I was a little bit underwhelmed. The maze wasn't as big or as exciting as I kind of thought, and they reached the end of it quite easily, really. Say they have these people who the whole job is to like run because, oh god, we must get back before we before the doors close. And they have that 3D like diorama of the whole maze as well, and it's like, oh, it's not actually that big.
But this is one of the things that never made sense. But that maze is open during daylight hours, right? That's the basic idea.
Yeah.
But the robot spider things aren't there.
Mm.
There is no threat during the day. That's why the doors are open.
Yeah.
So why are they so scared of going in? Like, fair enough, if you're going to be the one who's going to go and explore and search, you need to be able to know you can get back in time. But there's no reason why everyone can't just wander in for, like, 2 hours, have a little wander around, come back.
I thought that the whole reason why they weren't all going into the maze was because, oh god, the maze is so big and it's this huge labyrinth that you can go in there during the day, but you'll get lost and you won't be able to find your way back. But then it's like, oh no, we've got a map. It's not actually that big. We can get to the other end of it quite easily. So, yeah.
Do you know if they built sets or whatever? Because it really felt like they just were running on a green screen for...
Oh yeah, and I'm sure most of it was. This was quite low budget for the kind of film that it is. So, the boys are going about their business and investigating and stuff, and there are these weird, like, monster robot creatures that are in the maze at night. How did you feel about them? Because they were. I was not expecting something so overtly sci-fi, also overtly otherworldly.
Well, I was hoping when they were saying, "Oh, you go into the maze, you become a ghost," sort of thing. I was hoping for a bit of psychological stuff here, that maybe it was all fake, like the village maybe, or just that they built up a lot of what it was in their own head. And so he was going to go out there and kind of find out the truth. When it was just actually a big monster thing, it is a bit like, oh, we've lost any sense of symbolism here then. It is just a monster. So it did seem a bit like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just surprised that they revealed it so soon as well. I don't know, I thought they were going to play with the mystery a bit more and then reveal it at the end, but nope, it's right there.
Yeah.
That first, 40 minutes.
Yeah. I really didn't particularly like the monsters, but I just found the sequences where they were introduced so dull, and like my note here is that the film's just 90 minutes of giant spider things shouting, which I think is the second act pretty much, when he's running around in the maze and it's gnashing at him round a column. I've only made about 5 notes for this film, but then I just kept opening this up and adding extra notes after I'd finished watching it about how angry I was. So it's quite a few notes here, but...
One other thing that, not just in this film, but in the next film as well, really sort of started aggravating me, is that nobody ever tells you anything. Like, everything has to be a big secret. And everyone they meet is, like, really kind of sarcastic and cold. Yeah. It's like, make some different characters. And, like, so he turns up in this world, this new world, and rather than going, well, look, we don't know what's going on, that's a maze, there's monsters in it. Like, they go, look, everyone here follows the rules. And by the way, the big rule, don't ever go through that door. Yeah. And so obviously the first thing he's going to go is like, well, what's in there? Oh, well, don't worry about what's in there. We don't need to tell you that, but don't go through there.
That really bugged me.
And it goes on like that throughout the whole both films.
Really wound
There's
me
always,
up.
It's like, oh my God, who are you guys? Where are you from? Come with us, we'll show you.
Yeah.
It's like even the next one.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, Calvin, that line, the bit that I actually liked, where the guy was like, look, whatever you thought of, we've tried it didn't work. As much as I like that, it still bugged me, because it's like, well, no, this guy's new. Give him like the benefit of chatting to him, and maybe he has got some ideas, and you can kind of say, well, look, that didn't work because we tried getting up there, and then this thing fell down, and you know what I mean? And it really annoyed me throughout the film. This, like you say, everything's a big surprise, a big secret, and it's just so they can. It's just lazy writing. And the other thing is, whenever the plot needs to move on, Thomas just arbitrarily remembers something about his past. There's no provocation for it. There's nothing to justify it. It's just whenever it suits the film, he just goes, oh, hang on a minute. Oh yeah, this thing. That. Oh yeah, of course. And then it moves the story on. It's so badly written.
Unless you guys have any other points before we move on to the ending, the last thing I want to bring up about this middle section is the inclusion of Teresa, a girl who is pushed into the middle of these this group of boys.
I did have a note that happened before that girl came in. I put a note. Oh, this is one of those happy communes where everyone has a job that they're suited to, and there's definitely not tons of gay sex going on, which I felt was not touched upon.
No, yeah, no, it's not really, is it? Because
A bunch of like teenage boys together for 3 years. Come on.
They'd at least have like a spot in the woods where people go to rub one out. And
Jimmy, it's 3:00. Your turn in the wank hut.
But no, there is a girl who is brought up, and Thomas has memories of her from before the time in the maze. I really don't like this character, and very more so in the next one. But the shoehorning in of some kind of romantic frisson between,
but they never really follow that up.
No, exactly. That's because I think that's what it's.
There's a third film on the way, so.
Yeah.
Well, I felt really... I made a note about this girl. Basically, I said, she hasn't added anything at all, and now just seems really out of place. Especially when he was so like, oh my god, I've got to save her. She's really important, I've got to save her kind of attitude. Yeah, it's like her arriving didn't change anything, didn't make any difference. And then so I thought I was going to play up in the second film maybe, which obviously it does, but then even that feels like it could have been anybody could have done that. Like the Love Actually boy could have done that.
I mean, in terms of her characterization and everything, I don't have a problem with her anymore. I don't like any character in this first film whatsoever, not even the woman that Calvin no doubt loves at the end who plays a scientist. I don't like anyone in this film. Was that Patricia?
Am I that predictable?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've made a note when she came up that I wrote down, I don't know who this is, but I'm sure she's someone that Calvin knows and loves, and it's his favourite part of the film.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't like anyone in this film whatsoever. None of them are remotely charming, or I wasn't empathetic towards any of them. I if anything, just wanted them to all shut up and die. So.
Oh, what about Piggy?
Yeah, I like Piggy. I thought he was a really good actor, actually.
Wait, which one's Piggy?
The little chunky one.
Oh, yeah, he was okay. He was the least... Yeah.
See, I liked him, and then they killed him right at the end for no reason.
Yeah, well, they needed to have their Dobby emotion crowbarred in.
Yes, exactly.
I actually fell asleep through this film. That's how much this film wound me up. It lulled me to sleep, which I honestly don't think I've ever... I wasn't particularly tired, and it, like, genuinely... It was about when they went into the maze, I think, for the first time.
Oh, I was very excited.
It lulled me to sleep, and then I was woken up because there was some, like, loud screech at some point, and it jolted me awake. So I'm not quite sure how much I missed, or if anything interesting or
that was the good
happened.
bit.
Well, I mean...
I always get sleepy when I'm aggravated. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's weird though. I honestly don't think I've ever fallen asleep during a film like that before. Like I say, I wasn't tired at the start. It was really odd.
Oddly enough, that happened to me with the second one. But I suppose we'll get there. But because it's around the point shortly after the girl is introduced, we don't really see. I think maybe if they had explored more the Lord of the Flies, maybe the book does. I don't know about the Society of Boys and what a girl coming into that would mean. But Thomas gets a little band together, and they separate from the incredibly handsome Will Poulter, who stays behind in the meadow.
He's
and
rugged.
They go and they think they've found a way out of the maze because they found some clues and whatever. And there's a battle with a few of these spider creatures, and quite a couple of young adults die during this battle. And indeed, throughout the whole film, there are characters that die, which I was slightly surprised about. I don't know, I just always kind of assumed it was going to be like, oh, maybe we'll get PG. But it didn't...
I found that more jarring in the second one, if anything, the extent to which they were willing to just kind of shoot people dead. But yeah, I did find that surprising in the series. I think that's part of why people like it. A lot of people were pointing to the darker tone.
I hadn't thought of that, but it had occurred to me that less so with the second one because they're interacting with adults who are kind of authority figures. But in this film, when they're all just together, I thought there's no real reason these guys are teenagers or whatever, or young adults. Like, if they'd all been in the 30s and 40s or that sort of thing, it wouldn't really have made any difference to the story. Like, the story that was being told was not like a teenage story that was aimed at teenagers with their sort of interests, even if it's metaphorically.
I think that's a a pretty common thing you'll find in young adult fiction, is that the characters are arbitrarily younger than they would otherwise be, purely so that it will appeal to a young adult demographic.
But that's why I was expecting when this girl came in there was going to be a bit of a love story, because I was like, all right, well, if you're watching this teenage, like, that's important when you're 14, like that girl you've got a crush on and all that sort of stuff. So I thought that was going to be played up more, and then it wasn't.
I had the same thought, actually. I think this film would be better if the kids were all like proper kids, like young little children. Because the idea is they're test subjects who are immune to this thing anyway, so that's sort of the justification for them being young.
I did put some of these boys have beautiful hair to say they don't have any modern facilities available.
I did think that, yes. There's no sort of like bum fluffy moustaches around either. That's
true.
Very sort of
I think with their supply pods come with like hair wax and stuff like that.
They probably do.
Quite a few little small, like, logical things that just bugged me, and probably bugged Sol if you haven't fallen asleep.
I wasn't engaged with it enough to care.
When Albie and Mino go into the maze, right? Albie gets stung, whatever that means. And so Mino's dragging him back to try and get to safety. But we already know that when someone gets stung, they banish them into the maze, right?
Yeah, I hated this element. I wouldn't call this a small logical breakdown. I'd call this a massive fucking character.
But fair enough, this is Albie, right? He's the leader, so maybe he's thinking, oh, he's more important, I have to try and do something. Drags him all the way back to the thing. He knows the doors are going to close. Now, I think it's admirable that you're taking someone back that you think is going to die anyway. It's like, never leave a man behind. Okay, whatever. But I think at the point where you're 10 meters away and you can see the thing closing and you've got 5 seconds to run through, that's the point when I give up. Yeah. Like, that's the point when I go, okay, well, I could leave him or just die here with him, and he's here anyway, so there's no gain to this.
Yeah. And like you say, if you do get him in there, they're just going to push him out with a load of brooms, as soon as it opens up again.
I'm willing to go with that because of who he was. He was more important than that. But yeah, it was like, why didn't he just sort of go, okay, well, I gave it a best shot, but I need to run out. But yeah, and the other, what else did I have? Oh yeah, he's like, oh, you people go running in the maze. Oh, I'll do that. And they're like, no, you can't do that. Nobody wants to do that. It's a really dangerous thing to do. And he's like, no, but I will do it. And then why are they so cranky? It's like, it should be one of those jobs that anybody who wants to do it can do it.
Yeah, you think they'd be grateful.
Yeah.
I guess a part of it might be that they don't want to sort of have dead weight. Like, if this guy is no good, then even if he volunteer him, train him,
that's
whatever.
It, yeah. At least go, look, run around the glade for 40 times. We'll see how you get on.
Yeah.
This is something that really, really bothered me. The department, the sort of the umbrella corporation bad guy.
Wicked.
Yes, it's called Wicked.
WCKD.
Which, of course, we find out about 3/4 of the way through the film, stands for World Catastrophe Kill Zone Department. Which was, and my note was, that is not even worthy of Resident Evil. That is how bad that is. That is like something written for 8-year-olds, not 14-year-olds. Like, what is that? How could you possibly, as a writer, justify that? What is going on?
Because then they can have the tagline "Wicked is good," which is, I don't think that "kill zone" is a good word to have in the type of corporation. Anyway, shall we talk about the ending now, when they discover Wicked and Patricia Clarkson, who plays the Dr. Ava Page, who has left a video recording for the kids to watch as everyone in the facility is being shot dead, all these people in white coats and stuff. Mm-hmm. And now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I'm not sure if I noted it all down properly, but if I'm right, the world has been devastated by a solar flare.
Yeah.
And that caused a virus that we don't know about exactly in this film.
Yeah, I think it's like a magic virus that came out of the sun, I think, essentially,
right.
Which I can go with that. It doesn't make any sense, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, I can go with something caused the Earth to heat up, it's the Scorch, whatever. But then a sort of epidemic virus, not necessarily being a direct result of that, but because there's not as much infrastructure, disease is easier to run rampant.
Well, I think, like I say, I think it's meant to be directly tied to it, which at least makes it feel less coincidental that both things hit at once.
It's far more.
It does feel messy, though.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, but does anything in this film really make any sense, Alan? I mean...
Well, that's just it. I was hoping that in this explanation there was going to be something to shed light on where these spider robot monster things come from, because I wouldn't be so bothered if they were just mechanical beings, but there is a part of them that is organic. And that's just not explained here at all, or in the next one.
But we see Dr. Page. She sort of says, "Look, we've kept you guys here because you're special. Look, all this shit's going on out there in the real world, but everything's falling apart. Bye-bye," and shoots herself in the head. And first of all, I was thinking that's a bit of a coincidence. The exact same day they've escaped is the same day that like the rebels broke in and killed everyone. But that is kind of explained immediately when we find out that it's all a big fake out in the second ending. So, but that then does not explain why they're in this maze, why they're trying to kill them every now and then with spiders, why they sent a load of spiders to attack them to like try and wipe them out. What the fuck are they doing with these kids and why?
Well, there's something in there about being tested and that they're the best of their age group or something like that, which I was going with, and then I remembered Piggy, and I was like, wait a minute, what's he good at then? Because he seemed fairly inept at everything.
No, he makes little statues and shit.
They're all immune.
Maybe he's good at maths.
They're the best at being immune to the virus. Except they're not immune because some of them get stung.
Yeah, one of them's not immune. But then the sort of secondary thing that we find out is that they're immune to this virus, and so they're being kind of milked for antivirus. But they're not being milked because they're in this maze. So what is it about, we have to put all children in a maze, and then the ones that kind of survive when we try and kill them, they're the ones who are immune to a disease. What the fuck does that mean? What?
Yep. No, I quite agree. I don't have any answers. I was hoping that one of you might have. Because it's one of those things where I feel like, have I missed a line somewhere? Was I just like not paying attention?
Definitely the overarching plot I just can't get on board with. But it was just the very specifics of this little story that I really liked.
Yes.
And so that's why this film worked for me. It's why the second film was such a major disappointment. Because it was completely different.
We get to the second film, and is it like one of the first scenes? There are zombies, like proper zombies running down the dunes. Now, Sol, I immediately thought of you, obviously, because you are a big zombie fan.
Well, yeah.
How did you know there were zombies in this? Like, you're normally quite.
No, I had no idea. In the first one, the people are getting infected with the stuff, and my girlfriend sort of joked like, "Oh, zombies," when we were watching it, and it was like, yeah. And then the second one, just had this sort of zombie guy chasing after them at the start, and I thought, okay, that's so that they are kind of zombies, but I doubt that's gonna. I was expecting them to figure out a way to shove the kids back into a maze or something of that nature, because it's called the fucking Maze Runner, and that's the gimmick of this series. The same way the Hunger Games bends over backwards to get the characters back into the scenario of a Hunger Games battle. And it never happened. They just kind of were walking from one place to another, and then they'd walk somewhere else, and then they'd walk somewhere else. And
I think it might be an unfortunate sort of marketing result that the main title is Maze Runner, subtitled The Scorch Trials. Like, when the film begins, the title card just says The Scorch Trials, and I'm pretty sure that the book is probably just The Scorch Trials, but I guess they want people to know it's a sequel. I
thought The Scorch Trials, they would have to sort of go through a series of trials in some sort of, like, a different kind of gauntlet where they have to run and face things. Yeah. And it doesn't really do any of that either. It just becomes a straight-up zombie post-apocalypse kind of film, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like with especially with all that stuff about the sun at the end of the last one, I thought, okay, so Scorch, so it's going to be like they're outside now, and there's going to be these solar flares that they need to get around or something. I don't know. But yeah, they're just in a facility led by Aidan. Is it Gillen? Aidan Gillen?
Aidan Gillen. I made a note here. This is my first note for the film. I put Aidan Gillen, the worst actor in Hollywood. I fucking hate him. He's shit.
He can't do an accent.
He can't even do his own accent anymore. Well, in this case, it doesn't matter what accent he's got. there's English kids in this, and English and American kids and no other nationalities so in the maze. So who knows where it might be? It's probably in the middle of the Atlantic somewhere. But the accent, he's got a stupid voice, but the accent isn't important here. It's just that he's a shit actor. No. I just think he's always shit in everything he does.
Anyway, he's the adult who the kids are introduced to, and there's this facility, and it's all these young people, and every day about 10 of them get called up to go to, safety?
They go to a farm where everyone's really happy.
Yes. Which just sounds like that is an immediate cause for raising an eyebrow. I'm not sure that I believe it would take Thomas to be the first one to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Something's not quite right here. But instead we get children being hooked up to machines and drained of their brain fluid. Because apparently that is the antidote to zombification. Young people brains, but not young enough that it's going to be sad to see them dying. If you'll notice, everyone's sort of 16, 17.
Just while we're here, I found the start of this film far more engaging than the first film. And it very quickly kind of just became them walking around various warehouses, and I switched off, but...
This felt bigger budget, though, was it? Was the first one successful enough that it got
double
more money?
the budget, I believe.
It definitely felt like it. It felt like they had some real sets when they were on the buildings and stuff like that, climbing around the rubble.
But I do agree with Sol. Certainly later on in the film, I was like, how many warehouses are they going to be running around in? But the kids escape that particular warehouse anyway, and they pick up a couple of new friends.
I did like that bit, generally. I like a bit of prison movie bit. And I thought they were going to kind of be there for a long time, and they got out quite quickly.
Yeah, me too. This whole film has a very episodic, you can tell that, this is adapted from a book probably quite, faithfully, because it's just chapter after chapter of, okay, this is this section of the book. And
probably not a very good book, to be honest, as well.
But, there's other things that get set up there, like the main guy, Thomas... who has just no idea how to keep things on the down low. He gets suspicious, so he stands up and goes, "That's a bit suspicious, what's going on? Let me have a look at that." No idea how to keep his head down.
Well, I think, is that not his character arc during this film?
He learns how to shut his mouth.
Well, yeah, to be honest, in these first few scenes, he's really sort of impetuous, and he's just going to jump up and go and take care of something right away without thinking it through. And at one point, one of the characters, I think it's in a later scene, says to him, "Oh, you led us out of that facility and you don't even have a plan? What are we going to do?" And all this kind of stuff. And then that's paid off at the end of the film by him actually having a plan with the explosives that he sets off.
I don't know.
I'm not saying it's a great character arc. It's there.
Well, maybe. But then, he has a couple of confrontations with one particular guard who he's trying to get past him, and he's like, "No, get back." And I thought, oh, right, this is going to be the first level. You have to beat that guard, and then he has to beat Aidan Gillen, and then it's going to be... But that guard just never came to anything. It was little things like that was there's something... This is going to sort of become something, and it didn't.
Yeah. Anyway, it's around this point that all the kids break out of the facility, and they take refuge in this underground. I'm not quite sure what it is. At first, I thought it was a shopping mall, but there are a load of mannequins there. Maybe it is. But we get a full-on zombie chase sequence as the kids awaken all these living dead creatures.
This is the best part of the entire franchise.
I was waiting to see what your thoughts were. I quite enjoyed this.
It wasn't particularly great, but I could sit through the 15 minutes or so starting at this point without too much trouble. It wasn't offensively bad like the rest of the series. Have you guys played The Last of Us? I think I've asked this on the show before.
No, I haven't.
Because this middle section is absurdly close to The Last of Us. I mean, I know it's based on a book, but just the visuals and everything, and I don't quite buy this is all in the book. I'm convinced people working on this film have played that game and were very heavily inspired by it, because that game is a zombie game, but it's set in a world where the planet's been overrun with a zombie condition similar to the cordyceps fungus, if you're familiar with that, which is that fungus that infects ants and hijacks their brain and grows a big mushroom out of their head. So you get all these zombies in it with big mouldy fungus spore things growing out of their head. They go blind. They start clicking to use sonic vibrations to figure out their surroundings, like bats do, because they can't see anymore. And a great deal of that game set in, half fallen over skyscrapers and stuff. And then suddenly they run into these zombies with plants growing out of them, clicking, and they run up a half fallen over skyscraper, and it's unbelievably similar to The Last of Us.
Oh, well, there's another thing that I thought you'd love in this film, Saul.
Is it the cast?
What's his name? Giancarlo Esposito?
The cast in this film is such a step up from the previous one. Because as you say, Giancarlo Esposito, Alan Tudyk.
Patricia Clarkson in a bit larger role.
Yeah. Aidan Gillen.
Barry Pepper.
Yeah, Barry Pepper.
What?
I was like, is that Barry Pepper? I haven't seen him for years.
The exact same thing.
I had to look him up and like, what else has he done the last 6 or 7 years? What's going on?
It was around the point that Alan Tudyk's character is introduced that I was getting quite bored of, like, this whole film is just 20-minute intervals of these kids running into a group of adults, and it's like, do we trust them, do we not? And I get that it's a young adult thing, but the whole thing is built around, like, these bad adults, God, that reminds me of my parents, they want to use me and take my brain juice. And
well, Alan Tudyk and that whole section was completely extraneous as well.
Yeah.
He gets them drugged up or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was like this little PSA they just dropped in, like, don't take drinks from strangers, kids.
But they didn't, they like forced it down his, like they pretty much shoved that bottle in his mouth and forced him to drink it, and he's in a situation where he can't really say no. So it's not even immoral.
But then all that happens is he gets a bit woozy and then wakes up and it's like, oh, boy, is my head banging. I've got a right hangover. Anyway, shall we go on to the next level?
Well, yeah, but he wakes up and all of his mates are there again because he's been separated from them. So
yeah, we don't need to know how they got there or why.
Yeah, exactly.
Pointless, completely pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all my notes at this point are just along the lines of what's even happening, what's the point of this. So, when do we see that zombie eating rats?
That's just before the skyscraper chase.
Oh, okay, sorry, I've missed that. That was cool as well. I made a note of that. We're introduced to this zombie just like chomping down on rats. And to say I've seen so many zombie films, I've never really seen a sequence quite put together in that way.
Yeah, it was around this point that I did fall asleep for a little bit and I had to rewind and watch it again. Because it's a very repetitive film. It is it's 20-minute chunks of meet adult. Are they good? Are they bad? Never mind, action sequence because the previous adults are coming in.
Walk through desert, walk through warehouse, walk through desert, walk through warehouse.
And indeed, like, Thomas just doesn't have a plan throughout most of the thing. They're just strolling around, and they eventually find some other humans who Aris knows. He knows a couple of the girls because he was in the maze with them. Sort of resistance fighters, if you will, who were against Wicked's policy of harvesting children for a cure.
Aris meets these girls that he knew from the maze, and he goes to this girl, "Oh, how did you end up here?" And she never answers that, and we never find out. So presumably they got taken off on one of the transports, and maybe got hijacked or something by these rebel scum. Who knows? No need to give any answers, is there?
No. So, including the big plot twist that Teresa is actually a double agent working for Wicked, and they're able to track them to the rebel base and launch an attack.
I kind of like this bit, because she's not a double agent. She's not like been on their side the whole time. She decides for herself that what they're doing is for the greater good. And so she turns, basically. It's not that she's been working on the other side the whole time. She turns.
Yeah.
And it would be great if her character had any development whatsoever, so that meant something, rather than it just coming out of nowhere. And there was one bit earlier on where they're talking, the two of them, and she's like, "Oh, I'm just not so sure about this. I think we should go back." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, I remember things more than you do." And he goes, "Like what?" And she goes, No, forget it. And then it's like, for fuck's sake, just tell him. Like, it's obviously important. You should be telling everybody everything you know, because nobody can remember anything.
Yeah. But maybe that's all for the third film.
Do either of you have the slightest idea what the third film entails? Is it just more of them walking around, meeting people, and nothing particularly happening? Or is there a concept to it? Like they all have to do some actual trials? Or
I don't know, and I sort of deliberately didn't try and find out. I didn't try and watch a trailer or anything if there's anything out there. I just thought, bollocks to it, I'll just write a pitch. But I think there's more than 3 books. It's not a trilogy of books, is it?
I
don't know.
Well, this next film is the last film.
I think for a while they were going to do that thing of splitting the last book into 2 films, but they decided against it. And I think the film is like, these films, the first 2 came out like within a year of each other. It was astonishingly quickly that they churned them out. The third film was supposed to be out, I believe, last year. But the main actor, the guy who plays Thomas, was in a very, 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 very serious accident on set, and basically had to take months off to recuperate.
Oh, really? I was going to ask, why has it taken 3 years to get this sorted out?
Yeah, they had to reschedule the whole thing. It wasn't even like, we'll, bandage him up, get him back on next week. It was like, oh, shit, actually, he needs months to recover from this.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask, am I the only one who thinks that Wicked aren't really doing the wrong thing? I mean, I appreciate it's not morally that sound, but in terms of the end justifying the means, if they are legitimately searching or trying to find a cure for this disease that the whole world is infested with, but they're not, the cure they've got is kind of, it's only temporary, it's just palliative, so they need to continue milking. They can't just, we've got a sample of your blood, we can create an antivirus, boom. They have to keep milking these people who are immune for their immunity juice.
Yes.
Are they killing the people to get juice out of them? Because I thought they were just kind of milking them, keeping them alive, milking them a bit.
Well, they keep them alive, but they seem to be just hung up like in a coma kind of thing.
Yeah, that's...
But the whole point is that they have to keep them alive so they can keep producing it, because it's only a temporary thing.
Oh.
But then, why they put then some of them in a maze, I don't know what that's about, but whatever.
Is it like, how much, say you've got a litre of juice, is that 100 people, 1,000 people, what, one person? What's that going to do for you?
Well, they inject one of the Breaking Bad's guy's assistants gets bitten, and they inject her with it. I guess they've got a friendly version of the serum or something in the rebel base, and he asks, how long is that going to last? And she says, a couple of months, depending. So I guess it's only like a temporary...
But they use Thomas's blood. She takes blood from him. And because he's immune, she then... And if they've got no real sensible facilities there, so she can take, like, maybe, let's say, half a pint of blood off of him and turn it into a full thing for her. I don't know where the brain juice comes into that, but then, obviously, can just recreate it from blood. So you should be able to just donate blood regularly, and that would create a lot. But then, she says, it might work for a few months. I don't know, it's different for everyone. I'm like, well, that's completely not science, is it?
But they're doing science during the apocalypse. They've been able to do proper trials and tests on this.
So I mean, I'm not totally won over by these are the big bad guys kind of sense, and I feel like with the whole Teresa story, they're at least trying to suggest that it is a morally grey area. I don't know. It feels a bit like they don't quite know where they're going with it. But there should be, because the books are all written.
Yeah, but if they're following the books, do we know if the author was just making it up as they went along, or if the author...
of course they were.
Well, exactly. There you go, then. They're following...
Based on the first film to the second film, if they're representative of the books, then that first book was written with no concept of what the second one was going to be.
Exactly. Exactly.
And what I'm most interested, actually, Sol, is finding out where you rank it on your zombie film ranking list.
All right.
I want to know if it's above Resident Evil or
it's definitely
amongst it.
Oh, it's got to be above Resident Evil. I'm sure it is. Let me have a look. I've just loaded it up, and so shall I go from the bottom? Worst zombie film I've seen up until Maze Runner. I'll read them out as quickly as I can. So from worst up until Maze Runner, Day of the Dead 2: Contagion, the worst film ever made. Resident Evil Apocalypse, Resident Evil Afterlife, Children of the Living Dead, Resident Evil. Dawning of the Dead, Resident Evil Retribution, Resident Evil Extinction, Return of the Living Dead Necropolis, The Signal, The Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials. It is the 126th best zombie film that I've seen, according to this list. out of 136.
So, how much out of 10 would you rate The Maze Runner and the sequel? Alan?
I gave The Maze Runner 7.
Oh,
I liked big parts of it, but the kind of overall thing wasn't really good enough. The sequel I gave 5.
Ah, okay.
Which I think is pretty generous, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was trying to see it from a kind of like, it's just like Resident Evil sort of. It's just stupid action stuff, isn't it?
Well, I'm not too far off. I would give the first one a 6 and the second one 5.
3 and a 2 for me.
Oh.
I enjoyed more bits in the second film, but as an overall whole, I think it's slightly worse. Not a lot in it, though. Honestly, I think those films are really similar in terms of quality. I didn't think there was much of a step down. These are, honestly, these are some of the worst films that I think we've covered on this show.
I think that's unfair.
I think Resident Evil and 50 Shades of Grey, and other than that, I can't think of anything worse than this. So, do you guys know in America they call corn maze?
Well, that's a part of my pitch, actually. If we're going to get to our pitches, then...
Can I go first? Because mine's quite general.
Yeah, go for it.
Is that all right? So I didn't really come up with a very solid, proper plot, because it's just... It could literally go anywhere. After that first to second film jump, there's no rules. Okay, so I've sort of thrown together some predictions of what I think will happen. So some of them are a bit kind of more generic. Some of them are specific, and I want to see if I get them right. They will make a new friend who will get bitten by a zombie but survive by cutting off their leg before it spreads. That's going to be one of the ways they tie a tourniquet around it, and then they have to cut it off in a really kind of horrific scene.
You know what? At one point I would have said that would be too much for a series like this, but I'm surprised at all the stuff they actually get away with, the violence. Over here in the UK they're rated 12. I assume they're PG-13 in America. But there was in the second one, there was a bit when the zombies, they're trying to push a door on them and they've grabbed one of the guys and they're digging their fingers into his stomach. And for a second, I thought they were going to do that thing where the body splits in half, like in one of those
and all the sausages fall out.
It's a Captain Rhodes.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
There you go.
Yeah, they rip them open, rip out the entrails. They kind of crowd surf backwards into the zombies and get torn apart. And
that was very zombie film. That one, Okay, here's another prediction. Obviously, they're going to go back to the Wicked headquarters. I think Aidan Gillen is going to be the first boss they have to beat there, and I think he's going to die. My guess is he'll be crushed by a giant tank of water or some other sort of liquid that falls on him and then smashes in a very spectacular fashion. Yeah, maybe brain juice, but it'll fall on him and it'll smash and the water will go everywhere, glass will go everywhere. That's how he's going to die. That's my prediction. Then I think they'll find a room full of zombie people that are being experimented on, and one of them will be Mino, who is the kid who got taken at the end of the second film. So I think he will have been turned into a zombie in some way. So they'll take him with them because they're searching for a cure or whatever. But then he keeps trying to bite him and stuff, and is just a complete liability. So I think that's going to be a problem they have to deal with. But I think they're going to have a zombie with them for part of the journey. The main scientist woman, Paige, he's going to want to kill her, but that girl, Teresa, she'll stop him somehow, with words, not force. But then I think Dr. Page is going to die, but via some more indirect kind of means, so that we don't actually see him murdering someone. She'll probably
her own hubris.
Yeah, she'll be running to get away, and the zombies will be clamoring at the door. She'll be stood by a window with a big vial of MacGuffin, and then the zombies will break through and grab her after she's done giving a speech about how she doesn't care about killing people for the greater good or something.
Exactly. I do think, though, when she dies, there'll be some sort of reveal that she's not actually the top dog at all, but there's some kind of another level, another boss. But I'm thinking in terms of setting up the next film, which apparently isn't going to happen, but whatever.
Yeah, I was going to ask if that was your setup for an Act 4.
It was, yeah. I don't think this is ever going to end. Okay, here's a very specific prediction. I think at some point, a character will be revealed to be a hologram. Whether it's like... not necessarily like one of the main characters who's been there all the time.
Where's that prediction come from? Is there any indication that...
There is a hologram of the Doctor in the second film. Well, it's not really a hologram, it's a screen, but it's a,
But yeah, they got modern futuristic projection. But I was just sort of trying to think, what did they do on Resident Evil that was bullshit? It'll be stuff like that.
I was thinking a lot of Resident Evil watching these.
Yeah.
It wasn't just because of the zombies, but just that level of filmmaking.
This is definitely one. I think at the end, near the end, Thomas will have to crawl through a narrow passageway that will symbolise rebirth. There'll be some sort of birth metaphor at the end, because that is setting up what I think the next section is going to be. Because the only way I can make any sense of all this maze and all this bollocks that's going on is that actually the whole thing is fake. Thomas is the only real person. The rest of it is some kind of fakery, like it's either in his head or or it's a projection or something. I think he's probably sat in a tank somewhere with wires like the Matrix. But they have to keep him in a permanent state of terror, or at least sort of excitation, because that's what stimulates the enzyme or whatever it is that they're trying to harvest out of him. And then the next thing will be he'd be waking up, ripping all that out, and then it's the Matrix and they're in space.
I think the twist at the end is going to be that Thomas is actually, like, he's in a simulation, so that much is true, but it's because he's actually a sperm atozoa. And because they're testing, because they're breeding people who are immune to the virus naturally to just kind of dilute the population with people that are immune. But in order to like ensure that the right sperm get through that carry the immunity rather than the sperm that don't, they have to run them through this series of simulated tests. It's all quite symbolic. They're actually just swimming around a maze to get to the egg, and it's like the healthiest sperm do it.
The next film's called The Fallopian Runner.
Yeah. Would that be good?
I think that works, yeah. That makes as much sense as the rest of this.
Yeah.
Right. Saul, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go if you want. I'll get it out of the way.
Go for it.
So I have such contempt for these films that I haven't got a pitch. So
I'm really happy that we've found another series of films that you have nothing but contempt for.
But no, I just thought I'm going to treat this with the same reverence that the writer of the films and the books seem to do so, and just make something up on the spot. So those kids from the end of the second one that are still alive, so they walk to the coast, and there's a big boat, and they get on the boat, and it turns out that there's a whole load of companies called like BAD, but it's an acronym, and it stands
nasty.
Yeah. It stands for
Bad and Despicable.
Yeah, Bad and Despicable.
That's it. Because the acronym has to be cringy, but then the words behind it have to be even worse. That's the rules.
And so there's all these testing facilities on ships, and they get on a ship.
Wait, this is Resident Evil 4.
Is that? Oh, yeah.
You skipped to the end of Resident Evil 4.
Stick with it. So they're on the ship, and it's out in the sea, and they're having these battle games with the other ships, because they're all after the maze runners, because they've got head juice to stop the zombies. But some of the ships are driven by zombies.
That's a sentence.
There's like a ship of zombies chasing them as well.
I do like the idea of a Captain Zombie.
Yeah.
Full steam ahead! Brains.
In order to find the cure and save everything, for some reason, they have to put on these VR headsets and go into a virtual reality on the ship, like a holodeck kind of thing. And they do that. And when they go into the virtual reality, it's like a big maze. And it's a load of maze trials. So it's like the first film again.
When you say maize, do you mean like American corn?
No, it's not a cornfield. That's far too naughty for Teresa to be engaging. And so they do all that. Patricia Clarkson, it turns out, is actually like a real like good guy, but she's kind of been playing up the villainy role. Yeah, she's been looking out for Thomas the whole time and just kind of, leading him in the right direction with little bits of pulling the strings here and there subtly.
Like Albert Wesker.
Yeah, because she was friends with Thomas's parents, and it's because she actually had a bit of a flirty thing going on where she fancied the dad, but it was quite unrequited. And after he got a different woman pregnant, she agreed to back off.
But got obsessed with this kid.
Yeah. And sort of saw him as her own
Mr.
child.
Thomas.
And that's basically it. So they go through the trials and they figure out a cure or something. But once they've got the cure, they don't know how to administer it to all the infected people and the entire planet. And there's not really any infrastructure to mass produce it in this world anymore anyway. So that sets up a fourth one where they have to drive the boat to the facility in Australia. Sounds like a mate. I mean, that'd work.
This is the sequel, Maze Runner Logistics, where they have to distribute the antivirus around the world.
Right, well, I'm going to pitch you a crossover movie.
Okay. Is it an obvious choice? Is there logic to it? Or is it like Mrs. Doubtfire?
We've talked about Maze.
Okay.
Signs.
No. Another film series with corn.
Children of the Corn.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've never seen any Children of the Corn.
I'm not familiar with Children of the Corn either.
Oh God, we need to do that. Saying that I've only seen the first one. But,
what is it? What is the like elevator pitch for Children of the Corn? Just because I honestly don't know what.
Bunch of kids in small town, middle of nowhere America, drawn into this cult by one especially creepy child who believes that there is a entity living in the corn who is telling him to kill all of the adults.
Okay.
In the town, and then Linda Hamilton and her boyfriend on a road trip through America, and they of course get wrapped up in it.
It's based on a Stephen King story, so they probably end up in another dimension at some point.
There'll be the ghost of the father of the kid comes back at the end and talks to him, and then it's aliens.
It does get very stupid towards the end, and there is a bit of it's like it's like it's all really good until you get to the end, and then it's like, oh god, that's what the twist is.
Classic
is it?
Stephen
that's
King.
What it looks like. Anyway. The logic behind my crossover is not only that maze and maze sound the same, but that, whenever I've been in a maze, it's been like a cornfield maze.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maze.
There we go, you see? It all makes sense.
I used to work in one of those mazes. Do you know that?
No way!
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it as amazing as it sounds?
I was like in character. I had to be a cowboy walking around. Like,
oh, you have told me about this, yeah.
Can you do the voice?
Oh, God, what I'm trying to remember what I did. Yeah, I did the kind of, oh, yeah, I don't know there, I don't rightly know, sir. It wasn't quite like that, but it was that vibe.
Wow.
What information did you have to impart in character?
I just had to walk around the maze, and if I ran into someone, I'd just be like, well, howdy doody, yeehaw!
You doing it as old James Stewart? Oh, I've been stuck in this maze for 37 years.
Did you make anyone cry? Any children?
No, I don't think so.
Did you get to choose your character?
To a point.
What point?
Well, I got to choose the voice.
At what point did you go too far and they had to stop you?
With what? With being like a town drunk walking around?
But did they go like, oh, well, you can be a cowboy or a witch or a spaceman?
No, everyone had to be a cowboy.
What were the options? Oh,
okay. Like it was Wild West themed. Everyone had to be some sort of Wild West thing. Most of the people were kind of like well, howdy doody, you know, that very weak American accents, just generic sort of like.
Whereas you were nailing it every time.
Whereas that's it, where I was going for it with my, oh my Jesus Christ, son, I don't really know what's going on.
So I was trying to think of who would be a modern day Linda Hamilton.
The woman who is very popular.
Mila Jovovich, yes.
No, Jennifer Lawrence, I was going to say.
Oh.
She's already in the Hunger Games. She can't
do another one.
She's too old now anyway. Oh, hang on. Oh no, I was thinking Jennifer Lawrence is too old. I was thinking you wanted like a teenager for this.
Mila Jovovich is 47 or something.
No, that's why I forgot that you said Mila Jovovich.
I think she could play 17. Anyway, 17-year-old Mila Jovovich and her boyfriend are traveling across.
Who's the boyfriend?
I couldn't remember who it was in Children of the Corn, so it didn't feel right to cast a role that I can't remember.
Sam Rockwell.
17-year-old Sam Rockwell. It's Mila's birthday is coming up, and they're very excited. It's her 18th birthday, so they're traveling to a state where you can drink when you're 18. So they're driving in the car, and they happen upon a corn maze.
So they're passing a maze. They go, oh, that looks exciting. That's what 17-year-olds like to do. Let's go in there.
That'll break up the drive. You know, it's a long trip.
They think it's like postmodern and stuff.
When I worked at one, we had loads of young people coming in, ironically.
So they get into the corn maze. So they're like, oh wow, look, a corn maze. Isn't this interesting? Yes, this is the best thing we've seen because we've been waiting to stop for a while now, and all we've seen is really boring stuff.
They stopped at the world's biggest cotton reel. That wasn't very exciting.
No, so the maze is going to be good. Anyway, they get to the thing, and it's a creepy young person running the ticket thing
called Sol. He's going, howdy doody there, fella.
And they're
can I play that role as a cameo?
So Mila Jovovich and Sam Rockwell get to the maze, and they're like, "Oh wow, this is so interesting. We haven't seen anything this interesting since that lady with those snakes. So we're gonna have to go in here to break up the drive because it's coming up to my 18th birthday, and I'm doing ironic things before I go and get tanked somewhere else. And there's like a creepy kid called Sol behind the ticket booth who's like." Oh, what you kids doing around here then? And they're like...
You ain't gonna go in that maze ironically, are you?
and then they're like, oh, this maze is great. Can we please go in? And he's like, oh, you must be under the age of 18 to enter this maze. And they're like, oh, well, boy, that's a good thing because I'm turning 18 tomorrow. And then Sol's like, oh, well, it's no price admission for you then, young lady. And so they let them in, and they're going...
So you have to be under the age of 18 to be allowed in the maze, but anyone under the age of 18 gets in free. It's not a very good business model, is it?
You'll find out why, though.
It's because it's her birthday tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So she's turning 18 tomorrow.
What's the cut-off point for that, then? It's not a birthday that day.
Look, he's just being friendly. He's running his...
Does the boyfriend have to pay
side of the highway corn maze. And he's being friendly with people.
I don't trust him. Does he play a banjo at any point?
Right, anyway. So they get into this maze, and they're like wandering around, and at first it's fun, it's like, oh, isn't this funny? Yeah. And then they start getting a bit frightened, because it's like, God, we've been here for a long time, actually. And they're like desperate to get out and stuff, and then they finally come to what they think is an exit. They get to the exit, and they come out, and it's this like small deserted town. Ghost town. And they're walking through the town, and they're sort of like, oh, hello, who is, what's all this? And suddenly they're ambushed by a bunch of kids, and Sol, the ringleader, is there as well, and he's rallying the kids together, and they're like...
Wait, is Sol a kid then? I always thought he was an adult.
No, everyone in the town is under the age of 18.
Okay.
So we have some chase stuff around the town here, and Mila and her boyfriend are separated and kidnapped and whatnot, and there is a leader above Sol who exposits to Mila Jovovich and Sam Rockwell that the kids murdered all of the adults in the village and have formed a weird cult based on some entity that they're trying to appease in the cornfields. And the mazes are there to lure in tourists, and anyone of an appropriate age is indoctrinated into this society. And on their 18th birthday, they are sacrificed. They are taken through into the very centre of the maze, where there is this sacrificial thing going on. And all these zombies are there, but they're only attracted to 18 years old and over, so they leave the kids alone. But the leader of they take Mila Jovovich because they find out it's her birthday, and they like put her on a stake, and they're like take her to the center of this maze and stuff, and they do their big ritual, and some zombies come out and they're all running at her, and then there's this big bellowing, "Hold on!" And then all the zombies like hold back, and then this giant like zombie plant thing comes out of the corn. So the kids are appeasing this giant zombie plant monster, which Mila Jovovich and Sam Rockwell, obviously they break free, and there's a big fight sequence, and they set fire to the maze and to the plant zombies, and make their getaway. And we'll explain more in the sequel.
Wow. Well, I'm sure it makes as much sense as Children of the Corn.
Yeah. Anyway, there we go. So that's my crossover idea. I'm sure it'll be a hit. So, if you're a Maze Runner fan, let us know on our various social media outlets, and also what you think of the series. And stay tuned for our review of the year in about 6 months' time to hear our thoughts on the third film.
I'm not watching it.
I will pay for it on Amazon Prime if it is $3.50 or less.
Wow, bloody hell. Bye, see you next week.
I was about to be like, is someone going to say something funny? We can end on that. Oh, but we don't have to end that way. It's like no, shows where it ends with everyone laughing, throwing their heads back and... So we don't need that. We can end on a more somber note. Levi Stubbs, dead.
Thank you for listening, and if you are a fan of the show, or even a newcomer, then please do go to the Facebook page at facebook.com/Diminishing Returns Podcast. Not only will this allow you to communicate with us directly and have your say on our thoughts and opinions, but it also gives us the sense of approval that our fragile egos so desperately crave. Please like us, it's the only way we know you're listening. See you next week.